authentic conversations about ourselves and our community, exploring topics that uplift and inspire us. From personal growth to social change. So grab your teacup and get ready to join the conversation.
Maybe might be a millionaire. But the lady at the deli, the massage therapist, the CNA that works at the nurse's aide, that works at the nursing home, none of those people, the retired guy from Verizon Wireless, are millionaires. None of them are going to be able to relate to any type of lifestyle that Diddy was living. Hell, it's millionaires that don't relate to the lifestyle that Diddy's was living. Okay. He was getting like hundreds of millions of dollars from liquor sponsors. So, yeah, nobody on the jury right now is relatable to Diddy. No one. Even if you're black, if you're not a millionaire, you're not closely relating to anything Diddy did in his life after he became rich and famous. Nothing.
Sometimes see a little more open-minded. Prosecution obviously looking for dyed-in-the-wool older Americans who are just going to be appalled by what they see, hopefully for them. It looks like they each got a little bit of what they wanted. I'm interested to see what the racial composition was of the jury. That always matters, despite what some people say. It matters. But I think everybody got a little bit of what they wanted. And keep in mind, they probably lost a lot of jurors who simply couldn't be fair.
Oh my God. I keep forgetting to unmute. Anyway, did you hear what the white man said? Okay. Even he's interested in knowing who the jurors are, the races of the jurors. First thing I wanted to know when I got up and got into the tea of all Diddy things today. Okay. What race are the jurors? The girl that's running, the reporter that's running tea out of the courthouse to the guy on the long crime host here, she's saying that there are black people serving on the jury for Diddy. However, we also know, reading as I read when we first came in to sip this tea, and also the guy, Brian, no, not him. Okay, the guy with the black spiky hair that's hosting Long Crime. He said that, there are deli, food truck people that work on the food truck or the deli thing. You know what I'm saying? Like there are massage therapists, there are CNAs that work at the nursing home, there are retired Verizon Wireless people. Guy worked at Verizon Wireless for 40 years. Even if they're black, they're not relating to Diddy in those genres of life. Okay, like there are people that are on Diddy's level, not level, but millionaire status, that are not playing in Diddy's playground where Diddy was. Didn't Diddy have a house in Star Island? Like, nobody on that jury was related to Diddy, even if they're black. So we're going to keep it pushing.
Qualification.
Yeah, and look, I think that when they raise an objection early on today about a Batson challenge, saying the prosecution's eliminating black jurors, that's a significant accusation to make, not uncommon. You see a lot of those challenges made during the preemptory phase. But the judge didn't say it was significant because the prosecution basically came back and gave their reasoning for why these jurors were being eliminated. And that actually answers one of the questions we got from one of our viewers, Megamind678. Why did the jury count drop so significantly? Because they did the preemptory challenges in just a few minutes and got it listed out. Okay, we have a question from KC. Do you think they will find Combs guilty? What could these charges land him?
Well, it depends on what they are. I would be stunned if he walked away from all of these charges. Some of them seem like pretty low-hanging fruit. Obviously, if he's convicted of the racketeering, he's going to serve easily over a decade in prison. It could be far longer than that. But if he's only convicted of some of the less serious charges, perhaps the charges that relate to just transporting for engaging prostitution, it might not be as severe a sentence as one might think. So it all depends. What is he going to be convicted of? If he gets clipped on the racketeering conspiracy, he's going to be in prison for a long, long time.
Life in prison. Life in prison. That's what he's potentially looking at there. And it's incredibly significant here. The stakes could not be higher for Sean Combs. I want to make that very clear. We got a super chat question from Garrett. Garrett, thank you so much for the contribution. How likely will Diddy be to work out a deal as he sees the overwhelming evidence the state has? What a great question. Because I was always saying it seemed unlikely to me that Diddy was going to take a deal. One of the reasons that he rushed towards this trial, let me be clear, he rushed towards this trial. To have a federal case go to trial in under a year from arrest and indictment, given the charges here and the evidence, seems shocking to me. If he made bail, I was fairly confident he was going to try to push this trial down the road as long as possible. It seems to me he does not want to spend one more day locked up. But then I'm starting to think, he's last week reported, he told the court he's a little bit nervous. The reality of this is setting in. Jury selected, opening statements. He's going to see the evidence against him. You think there's a possibility he takes a deal in the middle of this trial?
It's always a possibility. The big question is there going to be a deal waiting for him now that trial has begun? I will tell you the Department of Justice for decades has been very, very, very serious about the fact that if you're going to take an
Exactly. Diddy did not take the deal that he was originally offered, whatever that was. I wonder what that was. What do y'all think the deal was? I think it was for 10 years. I think they offered Diddy 10 to 20 and he was like, hell no. But they usually don't let you change in the middle of the stream once you start rowing. You got to keep on trudging forward. You took it to trial. Now you must face a jury of your 12 peers and be sentenced or be led free. Okay, so
an offer, you're going to take an offer before the bell rings, and they'll pull it right after the bell rings. Now, they're pretty smart too. I'd be interested to see what everybody thought of the jury they got. If I'm the defense and I didn't get anywhere near what I wanted as a jury, I might want to today really think about revisiting plea negotiations. But my guess is they were probably years away from any kind of agreement in terms of a plea bargain.
When you mean that, when you say that, you mean what he wanted to spend in prison versus what the prosecution. That's what you mean by years away.
Exactly. They weren't. Right. My guess is they didn't offer him anything that he thought was worthy of consideration. And in a high-profile case like this, that's not really surprising. They really, think about how this began with, tanks and whatever vehicles they sent to his home when they first executed those warrants. You're not going to go through all that and at the end of the day offer him a kiss. And my guess is they're nowhere near a deal and there won't be a deal.
We got a great question from Rel. You think it's a mistake if they put Cassie on early in a 2-month trial? I think it's a great question for a number of reasons. She officially today is a part of this case. This is the first time her name has officially been part of this, okay? Victim one, okay? I think we can all say she's victim one. Now, if they start off with her and she's strong, what a way for the prosecution to start the case. And I believe a lot of this, if not all of this, is built upon her. This case was started through her. But if you listen to the defense and they keep saying it's choices that she made, she kept coming back to Sean Combs. This is not episodes of sex trafficking. If she is not as strong a witness for the prosecution as they were hoping, and they put her on first, is it a mistake? Either way, do you think it would be a mistake for her to be one of the first witnesses, if not the first witness in this trial, Brian?
Yeah, I do. I really think it's better that they build to her. I don't expect her to be last. I would expect her probably to proceed the other what I'll call complaining witnesses, because she really is the case. I'll also be surprised if what is being projected as a 2-month trial ends up a 2-month trial. So answering the question, it's a great question. It's all strategic. They've prepped her. The government knows what they're going to get from her. Her cross is going to be her cross. My guess is you get her early, but you get her after some layers of evidence that can't be disputed and can't be cross-examined.
So again, we're taking your questions right now in this lunchtime show. No cameras in court. We are doing our best to report to you as soon as possible about what is happening in that courtroom. And just to let everybody know what the charges are, because we talk about it a lot, let me just tell you what the charges again. He's facing 5 charges. Count 1, racketeering conspiracy. Count 2, sex trafficking by force, fraud, or coercion of Cassandra Ventura, victim 1. Count 3, transportation of victim 1, Cassandra Ventura. And also sex workers with the intent to engage in prostitution. And counts 4 and 5 are related to victim 2, unidentified, don't know who they are, don't know who this person is, but again, it repeats the charges with respect to victim 1, so sex trafficking and transportation to engage in prostitution. Very, very, very serious crimes. Even that last one, transportation to engage in prostitution, some would say maybe the simplest charge to actually convict him on, 10 years in prison, max sentence of 10 years in prison. So let's go back to the questions. We have one from Ace. I think I'm saying it right, Ace, TM. Where is witness 3, paid off or dead? Look, Brian, I don't know if you saw the reporting going into today.
Excuse me.
But alleged victim number 3, apparently the prosecution is having trouble making contact with this person. And it became a question, are they going to test?
I'm going to give a little tea. I want to say thank you to everybody that's tuning in. We are covering everything live first day of Diddy's trial. I think Diddy got rid of them. That has not been something Diddy is not shy of doing. In one way or the other, that person either ran away or got hid away.
Testify or not? One of the questions we had moving on to the trial today was, if they can't find victim 3, does this case have to be delayed? Isn't it weird what's going on with victim 3 or alleged victim 3?
I've never seen anything like it in a high-profile case, particularly a case being brought by the Department of Justice, that a witness right before the start of trial just vanishes or goes underground. Never seen it. They've usually gotten them buttoned up. They've gotten them either in witness protection or they're with agents. I've never, ever seen a controversy like this, and it could be significant. But I'll tell you something, this judge isn't going to delay a trial because they can't find their witness. This judge is going to say, finish what you've got, and if you don't have this witness, rest. And those counts that may relate to this witness may go right out the window.
You want to hear something interesting, Brian? So we put a poll up there about who you think won opening statements today. 78% say the prosecution won opening statements today. 22% say the defense. Now, again, we weren't in that courtroom. This is based on the reporting. But, again, it goes to this idea, if you are the Southern District of New York and you are prosecuting a case against Sean Combs, you better have the goods. And maybe it seems that they feel they have the goods of all these alleged crimes. And they have a way of trying to tie it together. Who the witnesses are going to be? Sex workers, employees, alleged victims. They are the ones who are going to tell this story, as well as any documentary evidence as well. But I find that interesting.
It's interesting that it's not closer. And
Yeah.
it's tough to gauge by the polls because, who's in the courtroom, who's not, who's listening. But we've been talking about how wonderful, I've been talking about how wonderful the defense team is in this case. You've got a who's who of some really great lawyers. Well, make no mistake about it, the people prosecuting this case are very, very good. You've got a, career prosecutor who opened today who's tried numerous racketeering cases in the past. So I'm not as surprised as one may think, particularly given what I would call an avalanche of bad activity. I mean, if you're just listening to it and listening to the behavior, it's pretty horrific behavior. Whether it becomes a case where they can prove beyond a reasonable doubt all these charges that you've enumerated, Jess, that I don't know. That I don't know.
We have a question from Gail Laurent. Will there be evidence that will not be accepted by the jury? Let's talk about how they found the tapes or all the leaks. So it's an interesting question, right? When you say not accepted by the jury, meaning they don't believe it, they are not going to use it in their determination, or it's not going to be brought into evidence. I'm not exactly sure. I will tell you, Brian, I mean, leading up to this trial, and I did a bunch of sidebars on it, there was multiple attempts by the defense to say a lot of this evidence shouldn't come in because the warrants that were used to obtain this evidence were ineffective. They were invalid. That the magistrate judge wasn't provided a complete picture of the situation. That if the judge had gotten all the evidence, what they say, of the text messages and the communications, they would have seen a consensual relationship. It didn't work. This is going forward. And it does become a question of, it's an 8-week trial. How much is the prosecution going to put forward, and how much is the jury going to see, and how much are they going to accept?
Well, they're going to see it all. I mean, to your point, the defense tried very hard to exclude a lot of this evidence. Now that the court has ruled, the judge has ruled, this jury must accept it. Now, whether or not they think it's enough to prove guilt beyond a reasonable doubt, I don't know. But they've got to accept all of the evidence that is going to be introduced in this case. They don't have the luxury of saying, well, we think it was a bad warrant. We don't think the government had the right to seize it. Those decisions have been made. This jury will be instructed that they're supposed to accept this evidence and give it whatever weight they deem, appropriate. But they're going to get it and they're going to see it. And this isn't going to be one of those cases, Jess, where I anticipate that you're going to get a light version of the prosecution. I think they're going to throw everything they've got at him. With the worry that because of his celebrity and because of his status and because of those little things, they don't want to leave anything outside the courtroom. They're gonna put it all up there and ask this jury to consider every single piece of it.
They have to. If they're trying to say what separates this as a domestic violence situation or a relationship versus a federal crime, it has to be Combs directing them, forcing them, threatening them, using violence in order to rise to the level of sex trafficking. If they're going to say racketeering, and I have to tell you, I thought it was very interesting, Kenny Garagos. So in racketeering, everybody knows that you need to prove 2 underlying crimes, right, to get to the racketeering conspiracy: kidnapping, arson, forced labor. She went through each one of them and said why it's not that, why it's not kidnapping, why it's not sex trafficking, why it's not forced labor. And she went through them. And obviously that'll be something that moves forward. But they're trying to dismantle the prosecution's case. Got a question here from Miss Can't Be Wrong. Phenomenal name, for the record. Miss Can't Be Wrong. Phenomenal name. The confidence there. I can't even match that. All right. This is for all the lawyers here. If Cassie settled her lawsuit against Diddy, took his money, how is it she can now testify against him? I'm curious, right? Because Cassie did file a lawsuit against Sean Combs in November 2023, settled with him the day after, and then we know there was just an avalanche of lawsuits against him and then ultimately the criminal charges. Fair question, right, Brian?
Really fair question. And this is from Mr. I'm usually wrong. The answer to the question, though, is if there's a criminal prosecution, all of that stuff doesn't matter at all. They can subpoena you. They can require you to testify. Obviously, it wouldn't be admissible in any kind of a civil context or a lawsuit. But in a criminal context, all those deals and agreements, they're right out the window.
But she could be cross-examined on it for sure.
Oh, sure. And, her motivations will be tested. The fact that she might have been extorting him or shaking him down. All of that's absolutely fair game, and I would expect to be a lot of the cross-examination in this case. I mean, this wasn't somebody who was slave labor. One of the problems I've always had with the theory of this prosecution was there are no juveniles involved. There's not an allegation of real human trafficking as we understand it to be. These are escorts or girlfriends or significant others that are going along for the ride, and it's in some ways a very luxurious ride. And so I think you're going to see a lot of fair cross-examination on just how motivated they were by the dollar, and he had a lot of them.
Well, I'll tell you, it was brought up today in the opening statements. I don't remember if it was the prosecution and defense, but they brought up that she filed a public lawsuit in 2023. They're not shying away from that. That's coming in. People are going to know about that. And by the way, it's interesting. I did a sidebar today. It's coming out later on the Alexander brothers. So these are another high-profile sex trafficking case at the federal level. And I was interviewing an attorney about it. I said, it's interesting how this is being prosecuted similar to Combs, because our classic understanding of sex trafficking is you have this shadowy organization that kidnaps people from a foreign country, ships them out, sells them to people. That's what you think about when you think of sex trafficking. The attorney, but they said, that might be an easier case for a jury to understand and digest, but it doesn't necessarily mean that what Combs is accused of doing and what the brothers are accused of doing is not sex trafficking. If it makes those elements and you have interstate transportation, commercial sex acts, force, fraud, coercion, you can ultimately get a prosecution here. Okay, we've got a question from Brooke Barnes for you. How can you as a lawyer be certain that the jury can remain unbiased with a defendant that's well-known and having well-known celebrities involved in any capacity? How do you combat that during trial? Brian?
You never can. Jurors give you their answers before you pick them. You hope that they're telling the truth. You hope that they've searched their soul for what are the true answers. But believe me, in high-profile cases, you're going to have people that are on these juries who have a view, and that may be a real positive view of the celebrity or a real negative view of the celebrity, or just a desire to be on that jury because it's a celebrity trial. And you never know as a lawyer who's trying to pick those juries and as a trial lawyer who's trying those cases where everybody is. And that's why you're looking at them. You're looking at their eye contact, their posturing, how they react to certain witnesses. I've had celebrity trials where people all of a sudden will start wearing T-shirts on the jury that have messages on them and stuff. So sometimes these folks can get enamored with the celebrity nature of the trial. Sometimes it turns out to be a real circus. But most times, most of these jurors honor the law and honor those and come in there and decide these cases on the facts. And I'm guessing that they'll do that here.
By the way, so we're here for another 20, 30 minutes. I'm getting live updates about what's happening in court. We're going to present those live updates to you as well. So right now, for example, court is back in session. After this lunch, first witness from the government to testify. No idea who that person is. As soon as I find out, you will find out. We'll talk about it. But we're taking more of your questions right now on YouTube. Here's a great question here, Brian, from Stephen Ramsey. How can you be charged with a conspiracy, right? Conspiracy to commit racketeering. How can you be charged with conspiracy when it's only one person? Great question, right? Wasn't that the whole Ghislaine Maxwell situation? Who was she sex trafficking everybody to? Why is she the only one? Why is Combs the only defendant in this case?
Yeah, I've never quite understood why he's the only defendant in the case. But unfortunately for the defense under the law, you don't have to have indicted co-conspirators. They can be unidentified co-conspirators. They can be co-conspirators that are identified but never charged. And the jury will be told that. So it won't be an obstacle to proving the conspiracy. But jurors are reasonable people, and they may be saying to themselves, how is this a racketeering conspiracy? And this guy's the only guy in the courtroom. I think it's a really interesting issue legally, unfortunately, for the defense and fortunately for the prosecution. They don't need to charge anybody else as a co-conspirator to charge a conspiracy.
Well, I think those are going to be the cooperating witnesses. I would have to imagine if they're going to have his staff and people who are around him. But obviously, their incentive to testify against him now will be a prime material for cross-examination. So as we wait for these live updates to come into court, got a great question here from Mohican 161. And it goes to a question I didn't have a chance to ask Elizabeth yet, but she might not have the answer because we haven't seen any evidence come into the courtroom yet. But will Puff's children see the videos if they present it in court? Let's enlarge that question. This jury is going to see videos of freak-offs. Is everyone in the gallery going to see the videos, or are they going to have private screens, and the witness is going to have private screens, and all we're going to hear is the testimony regarding that video? How does it work when you deal with sensitive material like this?
In every case I've ever had, the jurors certainly will have private screens, but it'll be shown to the entire courtroom.
Really?
It's a public courtroom.
Wow.
It's a public courtroom, and unless there has been some type of order issued, sometimes things can be really graphic. Sometimes, there can be agreement among the parties that it not be demonstrated.
Tea sippers. I don't know about y'all, but I definitely know that the kids of the Combs family should not be in the courtroom when they show their daddy freaking. Who wants to watch their parents fucking? Nobody. Okay? Stop the madness, sir. Mr. White Man on the screen, please stop the madness, sir. Now, we've been fucking with you. Okay, we like your commentary on what you're speaking about Diddy so far. You seem unbiased, but his children should not be subjected to him fucking.
Thanks for watching. Remember to show your support by liking, subscribing, and sharing. It's a blessing. Keep your teacups filled and ready for my next upload. Until then, stay inspired and remember, always stay dipping.